Well, a very good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 13th of April. It's just after 1 p.m. And you're very welcome along to the Lite Bite Lunch. Good afternoon. Indeed, good afternoon. It is indeed the Lite Bite Lunch coming to you live from Ballinamore in County Leitrim. Weather is a little bit breezy out there, but sure, it's not too bad a day. At least it isn't snowing. My guest today is Brendan Murphy, who a lot of you will have seen previously on the show discussing his return from Ukraine just as the war started. Unfortunately, he's not able to join us live today, but I did get a chance to catch up with him yesterday evening. So what I have is a pre-recorded interview with him, which we'll play, and I'll be back to you straight after this. Well, I'm absolutely delighted, Brendan, that we did manage to get a chance to have this chat. I know you had hoped to do the show live today, but unfortunately it didn't quite go to plan and timings have ran against us. But thank you so much for taking the time to have the chat with us. For those watching who haven't seen you on the show before or don't know your background, maybe you just tell us all a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so my name's Brendan Murphy. I live in the Cooley Mountains, in the mountains of just above Omeath. I'm an international business consultant, so I'm in very large companies listed on the stock exchange, very large turnover, complex organizations. And I work initially I was based in Ireland, but for a number of years up until the most recent invasion by the Russians, I was in Ukraine, living in Ukraine, and the first place they attacked was the place I was living, and I brought my family from there all the way to Ireland, where we live back in my home place, where I've been for very, very many years.
Absolutely, and it is great to see you back home safely. Having made that return trek, and again, you've been back for quite a while now. How have you settled in? How have the family settled in to the Irish way of life?
So for me, it's like your hand fits a glove, right? So I mean, it's home. It's everything I know. How everybody thinks and acts and behaves. I grew up with it, so it's me. It's as natural as breathing. Okay, it's completely normal. Obviously, it's a challenge for people who come from Ukraine from several different perspectives. One of which is they're used to living in multi-unit apartment blocks in cities, in towns with a lot of apartment blocks. We hardly ever live in an apartment block in Ireland. It's very rare. And living in a house in a mountain in the countryside is a big shock. Things like our approach to Ukrainians in terms of our openness and our easygoing nature, and the lack of, documents that in Ukraine you would need many, many documents. You need to see many, many people. You'd have a lot of things. So it's very, very different. And our food is different. So it's quite a big shock, but it's not over either, because as you know, the events in Ukraine go from bad to worse, including the beheading of a prisoner of war yesterday, and a few days ago the kind of murdering of another prisoner of war who was made to dig his own grave before they murdered him with machine guns. So all of this is present for them in their real life, in their family, in their people who are serving, people who and any environment, whether you're, I mean, I never did, I was away very many times. I was in other countries for a long time. I always knew every day, every week.
I mean, as you know, I mean, we're going to discuss everything going on in Ukraine and your recent trip back in a few minutes. But as you know, every time we come on, we like to ask you, what for you at that time is your ideal light bite lunch? So in the current moment, I mean, I know for you, the bacon sandwich was one, the Teddy's ice cream was another. So where are we up to at this stage?
Yeah. So this stage is definitely bacon and cabbage. We've just been past Easter and there's about 10 kilo of chocolate been eaten. Well, bacon and cabbage is just royalty food, in my opinion.
No,
now, I'm a bit different to a lot of, I'm a bit different in that I like to grill the bacon to make it hard and crispy, which is sacrilege. I know there'll be people in Tipperary wanting kind of make that, but I like that kind of crispy saltiness of the bacon and that very green cabbage, and it's just with butter melted into it, can't be beaten.
Absolutely. Now, the big reason we wanted to bring you on this time, you've been very good. You've given us a huge amount of time to discuss Ukraine previously. But what I do want to do this time is I want to discuss the business consultancy side of your business, because a lot of people I know that I've spoken to after you appeared previously, and I was saying, look, have a chat with Brendan. He might be the right man to help you achieve what you're trying to do. And the reaction is always, but he deals with international companies. He'd have no interest in dealing with small micro businesses. Knowing you personally, I know that nothing could be further from the truth. You love working with small.
Yeah, I mean, I work with people, okay, and there is no difference between a micro business owner and somebody at a Fortune 500. Believe it or not, there are some behavioral differences, but in terms of their core, they're very similar, right? And the best chief executives are very much like a micro business owner. Don't get me wrong. And actually, this morning I was helping a very small company to solve some issues that they had. A lot of it around, changes in contracts that have become null and void because of certain contractual agreements. And it's a relative, for me, it's very simple because I've worked a lot of law in the past. You don't have to make it where lawyers are involved. It doesn't have to be complicated because I'm an accredited civil and commercial mediator, and I can look at it and say, well, okay, then this is the roadmap that you see. These are the alternatives. What are you trying to achieve here? What do you want to do? Do you want to, free yourself? Do you want to be emancipated and go off and do something? How are you going to negotiate from a position of influence as opposed to being just told what to do? And I did that for many years in Ireland, where my children all leave Ireland up until they were all, the youngest was 18, so I would know Irish business very well.
Yeah, so then is the journey is the same. It's just the spend more involved.
Yeah, and people are people, right? You know, if somebody could be on $1 million a year, 2 million, 10 million, but the people, the behaviors, the thinking, and all of it is not so different.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I wanted to also discuss with, because it was actually how we first met, was on discussing the perfection of the journey. And
Yeah,
so many times, I mean, and you can tell me if otherwise, so many people have these most wonderful websites with this dancing on the other, but they miss the purpose, the customer journey. Would
yeah,
you, do you think
yeah.
that's a fair sentiment?
It is. It is a deep annoyance that web developers, web designers, people who design and develop the website, basically build it, don't act in a way that improves the quality of websites. There's a lot for over up until January, well, mid-February, I was working with another Irish small business who spent a lot of money. You know, you're talking over, well, you're talking 10,000 they paid on a website where the customer journeys were fractured, right? And the abandonment was happening simply because there wasn't the careful following of the principles of the customer journey. And it was costing them money, and they paid for absolutely Rolls Royce standards, but the customer journey was flawed. And that's a problem, right? Because very often the business doesn't know. They look at the images, they look at all of the content, they think it's fantastic. But when you do the analysis, people spend maybe 30 seconds on a page, right? Well, that's only, there's about 100 words limit because people will read more than that in that time. So you have to craft your content to the actual time that people read on a page, right? So when somebody's writing a big, essay on themselves or their business, well, the first 100 words are the only ones they're going to read. And if you don't know what that time is, the user time, you don't write to that, well, it's like you write a beautiful book, someone takes the first 3 pages and tears them out and say that's your story. And of course, if your story isn't in those 3 pages, the customer doesn't get it, and it doesn't work, and it's not performance.
Absolutely. Well, again, I was actually looking at a website for a particular business, and the first 11 pages told me the entire life story of the people behind the business. But we never actually got to the business part of it, or what it is they actually do now. It was literally a biography of their life story, and it takes the whole purpose, and it actually switched me off from wanting to deal with them.
Well, yeah, and this is where, in social media, you've different channels. Some channels are for a narrative of your life story, like TikTok, Instagram. You build your journey on there over time, little episodes, small second, 180-second small scripts, because if it's ever going to drop, nobody's going to sit for listening to you. So this website has a different purpose, right? It has a different way of reaching people, and it performs certain tasks. And it's like if you have a tractor or if you have a digger, right? You don't use a digger for tractor's work, and you don't use a tractor for digging work, because that's not what they're for. And understanding when you're looking at digital tools, right, which one does what to the best, and which ones do I need? What jobs do I need to do, right? So my website should be this, Instagram for that, TikTok for the other, whichever one you want to use, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, again, I think that's one of the most crucial things where your expertise comes into it, is minimizing the number of clicks that a customer has to spend on a page to get the information they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, it used to be 8 clicks, then it went down to 5 clicks. Now it's down at 3 clicks, and it's getting to a point where, really, if you're clicking more than 3 times, you're gone because people are not interested. It needs to be click, click, click. And you bet you're paid in home.
Yeah, if you can do it in 3, you're absolutely laughing. So, as you mentioned there, you are indeed on Cooley Mountain, and you had the recent visit of President Biden. And from some of what I've been listening to, or what I've heard about it, it has caused absolute mayhem with traffic. But at the same time, I think it's great to see such a small region get such a good response and so many people turning out.
So I live here, right, and I've been moving around today. So let me put certain things to bed, right? President, but we're recording, the night before. So Joe Biden is on his way. He can't come by helicopter. He's coming by traffic, by car, and so that makes an impact. But across the mountain, there's guards and Secret Services people, but nobody's being stopped. Everything's free flowing. Everything's free flowing. What they're looking for at the minute is to understand the volumes, understand where people are going, and then when they need to stop them, they've got designated places that you go, right? And you park your car down and you walk, and it's not more than 2 kilometers anywhere to get to go and see Joe. And to be honest, he's walking around the marina, he's going to look at the castle. It's, typical Irish romantic weather, which means it's lashing with rain and the clouds are about 3 foot off the ground, or a meter. And that's just the whole thing. But this morning, the American news programs were covering Ireland, and it was sunny and it was warm, and there was a lot of great crack. And in terms of advertising Ireland to the Americans, which is a big tourism market, we couldn't pay for that kind of thing. We would never afford the amount of advertising that Joe Biden has brought to us. And he is a near neighbor. His family is just from the other side of the mountain from me. There's a whiskey factory between the two of us, which is always good.
Always a good meeting point.
Always, listen, it's not exactly halfway. It's closer to them than me, but it's not far. So that's really good, okay? And I do think that sometimes there's a lot of negativity in the media that gives a negative understanding to other people. But I can promise you all day today, I've been jumping in and out. I was in Dundalk, came back, up the motorway, down the motorway, over the mountain several times, into the village, out of the village, not a bother.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, you recently, a couple of weeks ago there, you were actually on a humanitarian mission back to Ukraine. So maybe you just give us a little bit of an update what the situation is. Again, aside from what the media give you and where the media are showing you, and it's where with media, a lot of what's being told seems to be about hype. Because when I speak to people in Ukraine or people who are talking to people in Ukraine, it's a very different picture that you're actually getting.
Yeah, so first of all, I think Irish people, like many people across the world, have been sheltered from the depravity and the absolute carnage that the Russians are doing, right? And tens of thousands of Russians are dying, right? It's the way that they are fighting this war is as primitive as World War One, walking across fields with spades and shovels and with grenades and in the face of machine guns and drones. So there's a lot of blood being spilled, right? But the Russians don't care, right? There are videos of Prigozhin, who is the head of the Wagner group, proudly in front of cemeteries full of banners flying in the wind saying, "This is great. These people have given their life. They will be remembered forever." Thousands and thousands of dead people. He's proud of it. Putin's proud of it. Right? Medvedev, which is the former president who's the head of the Security Council, wants to destroy every single Ukrainian. They've taken little children, right? And of course, that's why the international, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, have actually indicted Putin on war crimes. And his ombudsman, his children's ombudsman, stole a child from Ukraine and proudly on television showed how she was programming the child to be a normal, civilized human and getting rid of the Ukrainian from that child. Now, that atrocity is not being heard or seen in Ireland, unless you got YouTube or some of the other feeds. But be in no doubt, this is inside of Irish people. This is something that is impacting on, and if we don't do something about Russia, we are going to have an absolutely atrocious time, lasting decades, of the scale of a world war. And that's not talking it up, it's what they want. Not what anyone else wants, it's what they want. He's going to raise another 400 to 700,000 people in the next mobilization. Each one of those people are going to be shoved westwards. It may be Lithuania. They may come through Belarus to Poland. As you know, he's moving nuclear weapons into Belarus against the international treaties which Belarus signed to be a nuclear neutral country. So there's no nuclear in Belarus weapons. So all of this is happening and we are not knowing. And it's a very dangerous thing. And Irish people are, you know, the media has been told by governments right across the world, tune it down, tune it down, tune it down. And it's the most dangerous thing because people don't understand the inherent dangers of Russians in Ireland as well as in Russians in other countries. And there is not everybody, of course, absolutely. Some very fine people who happen to have a Russian passport and were born in Russia. There are others who are malevolent with a capital M, and we're blind to it, and it's a big, big problem, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, it's something that we will watch going forward, and I'm sure we will have you back on again to talk about it in the future. When you were on previously, I know progress was slow on the book, but was happening.
Yeah.
So have we a release date yet?
So we have we're through all the phases. The last phase, as I understand it, is the editor, another editor, goes through it for gaps in the storyline and where things don't pick up, where there's loose ends, and all of that's being done now, right? And it seems to take a very long time, but they're publishing thousands of books, not just mine. So contractually, they'll be publishing it sometime in August and certainly before September, right? As well as second week in September. So I'm expecting soon, and usually when you mention it and we talk about it, the day after I get an email to say, okay, we're at this stage now. And that's pretty much where we're at with it. Just
hopefully we'll be the catalyst for the next stage of it, because as I said, I'm really looking forward to reading it and having you on to discuss it, and whereby we can devote the entire show. We might even do an extended show that day to discuss it.
Yeah, well, I hope I hope people will read it for what it is, which is as honest and as clear recollection as I can of what happened to me and mine before the war, at the time of the war, during the journey, and getting home.
Yeah. Well, again, as I said, having been in contact with you during that journey, and
that's right,
not knowing some of what happened, it's, as I said, I'm interested to read the entire story, and I am really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So,
and Rory, thank you, because those messages were vitally important. When you're in a very, very dangerous place, somebody messaging you is incredibly uplifting and encouraging, because you don't know if you're going to live the next kilometer, right?
No,
Those messages were important at that time.
well, I'm glad we were able to be of some support to you, because, as I said, we here in the Lite Bite Lunch appreciate the support you have given us since you got back. Time is very quickly catching up on us, Brendan. So what's next for you?
So tomorrow I'm going into PTSB, the bank. They're doing a lot of digital transformation work, and one of the projects there is on the Payment Services Directive, which comes from the European Union. And they've done work on it before. They need to have an upgrade, and I've been asked to go in, which is very, very good news for me, absolutely, to project manage and program manage that aspect of the work that they're doing. They're doing a lot in the bank, but that's what I'm going to be doing, essentially working there to ensure that when you and other clients of permanent TSB, if you are one, I don't know if you are, is that when you use your devices, when you go to pay something, and when other people pay you, and when you want to do things that are very flexible, that the technology that you get to do it in, it works extremely well.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Brendan, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to catching up with you very soon. A huge thanks to Brendan there for that, and apologies that the quality was a little bit sketchy along the way. Unfortunately, internet connections can play up at times, and we do apologize for that. So, in relation to the Micro Business Awards, just wanted to remind everyone that the nominations for People's Choice are still open, and the voting for People's Choice are still opening. If you would like to vote for a business as the People's Choice, you can visit Irish Micro Business Awards at .ie. Go to the Enter page, scroll down to the bottom, and the form is there to fill in. All the voting will remain open right across the summer till the end of August. But in 2 weeks' time, we'll be back with a really special show when we will have, we will actually be announcing all the finalists in all 14 categories for the Micro Business Awards. We won't be here in studio. We'll actually be coming to you from Widnes in Cheshire while we're working on something rather special for later on in the year. And thank you for your comment there, Monique. Monique is just saying that was a great interview. Brendan is always interesting, and I would have to say I totally agree. It's always most interesting when you get a chance to chat with Brendan. So, as I said, we will be back in 2 weeks' time. We'll be coming to you from Widnes in Cheshire, and we will be announcing all the finalists for the Micro Business Awards 2023. If you would like to attend the finals, tickets are now on sale. They're priced at €90 each, and the finals are being held in Wexford this year. So if you'd like to book tickets, just drop us an email at microbusinessawards@gmail.com, and we can organise to get your tickets sorted out for you. So until then, I will bid you all a very good afternoon, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Goodbye.